Galina and I had so much fun with Amy that we have decided to team up, the three of us, on a big, exciting project about health, weight loss, and finding your new normal. Come join us at eatmovelive52.com/Amy. Get all the information, sign up to hear the news first. See you soon.
Hello and a warm welcome to the Eat Move Live 52 podcast from your hosts Roland and Galina.
I'm Roland, and I am a skill-based weight loss coach who lost 110 pounds myself 17 years ago, kept it off ever since, and now I help my clients and readers to do the same.
And I'm Galina. I'm a movement specialist and a trauma therapist, supporting people with chronic and persistent pain and recovering from emotional eating.
This is your first time with us, head on over to eatmovelive52.com/podcast guest, get your free download, and see how you can work with us.
And now on to the show. Hi and welcome to the Eat Move Live 52 podcast. We have a very special guest with us today.
Amy Kubal is joining us. Hey, Amy.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We are great. Amy Kubal, Master in Science and RDN, is a registered dietitian who's well-versed in working with paleo, autoimmune, ketogenic, digestive, and kidney health, performance, eating disorder, figure, bodybuilding, diet, nutrition plan. That's a lot. She has served as a consultant dietitian for Rob Wolf, the Paleo Mom, training Bible coaching, and several CrossFit gyms. She also works independently with a wide range of diets, health conditions, athlete types, and ages. Amy, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. Galina and I, when we suggested, we've been following each other on Facebook for such a long time, and Galina asked me the other day how we'd met, and I have no idea. I have I do have an idea, but I think it must be through some sort of a podcast and commenting on comments in a podcast, stream or something like that. It's been such a long time.
It's gotta be because I can't. I've tried to remember. I'm pretty sure I've never met you in person. I'm pretty sure, but I don't. Were you ever at Paleo FX or Ancestral Health Symposium?
I went to Ancestral Health Symposium in Berkeley. But that's
the very first one ever?
No, I think it was the second one. It was in 2000, I think maybe 2015 or 2016.
Okay, so, then no, I was before that.
Yeah, and I haven't been to I haven't been to Paleo FX. Yeah.
But yeah. I feel like I know you because I follow you, and we both love cheese, and that's enough reason for me to love you.
Yeah. Right, and I pretty much my life is pretty much a daily Facebook post. It's not that exciting.
Well, at least you're funny. So. You're funny, and you're.
I can't make.
Yeah.
I really can't make this shit up. This is what actually is happening.
That's funny. Yeah. So I think it was through Rob Wolf's podcast. I used to be before I got into coaching people, I had a full-time job, and I drove a lot, thousands of miles a month just for the job, much less. So I had a lot of commute time, and I used that time to listen to a lot of audiobooks. And when I ran out of audiobooks, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I think I listened to virtually every nutrition, paleo, primal, low carb podcasts, and I heard you on plenty of them. So I know we go back as far one way or another, go back that far. So it's been a while.
Yeah, and we've been friends on Facebook for a long while. So yeah. I feel like I know you guys too, and you live in Boulder, so there's that.
That's right. Yeah. So it's great to finally.
Or near Boulder. Yeah.
It's great to finally talk live.
And I had this idea probably a few months ago. We're talking, who can we invite who's an RD who's super level-headed? And it was like, oh, how about Amy? Because it's so hard to invite to our podcast somebody who's not extreme in a camp of some sort, right? Or like in a very narrow niche. And we really love people who are well-rounded and who can sort of embrace a wide variety of clients. Because so often, we're close with people who specialize in nutrition, but they're sort of working on the edges of the bell curve, like kind of on the outskirts. And there's so much wonderful work to be done in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so nice to have somebody who has experience with all of those things. So you've got the clinical experience and the RD and all that, but then you've also you've seen some of these things on the outskirts or the fringes, and you've played with a lot of them, you've experienced a lot of them, and then you take all that sort of knowledge and sort of figure out like how it works in reality, which I really like.
Which is totally different than how it works in a research paper. I'll just tell you that right now.
Yeah. So when Galina and I started, we started working with our nutrition clients. We were pretty focused on, well, way back when it was like just counting calories and things like that. But then when we started getting more into coaching people, it was more of a paleo style diet because it's a little bit simpler. And we really wanted to focus on the people who had more than just weight to lose, but they were trying to improve their health as well. And our relationship with paleo has changed a little bit over the years. What about you?
Oh, for sure. I would say, like, when I first started in the paleo sphere, I was pretty militant about it. And I thought it was the end all be all for everything. And ultimately, it's not. And it's not for everyone. And there needs to be some flexibility built in, and it needs to be sustainable. Ultimately, it is one of the best frameworks out there, I feel, because it's based on real food. But there's also a lot of people that do it wrong and that don't grasp what it truly is, or they don't give themselves any leniency, which I like to call, it's called having a life, in other things that are out there, like it's this way or it's no way. And I think that's where sometimes where paleo gets a bad name is because of the people doing it wrong and telling everybody else that this is how it needs to be done, and because it's so rigid, and ultimately they make it into something that it doesn't need to be, or that it's not.
Mm-hmm. Just for clarity for our listeners, would you give a tangible example of quote unquote doing it wrong? Or like
paleo
what
cookies?
Yeah, or what yeah, like what people are told to do is the idea like you can never get off, or is the idea like almond meal muffins?
Okay, so both, absolutely both. So yeah, there's paleo everything nowadays. There's cheese that fits in a paleo diet, which cheese is not paleo, but it's made from almond milk, and like we have paleo pancakes, paleo muffins, paleo bread. Everything it's turning into like what I feel is how, like for back in the 80s, early 90s, fat-free and low-fat was like the craze. And then we started having fat-free cookies, fat-free ice cream, fat-free butter, and people stopped losing weight and stopped seeing results and stopped feeling good because all of this stuff is coming back into your diet. It's the same thing that's happening with paleo, with keto. Once you start making things that aren't inherently from nature or part of that plan, regardless of what ingredient they're made with, things are going to start going wrong real fast. Other things that I've seen people do wrong is, so paleo is not all meat and fat. It's not, it should be more vegetables than anything else. It should be a more plant-based diet than anything else. If you base it off what the cavemen ate, they didn't eat meat every day. They ate meat when they hunted. And it's fine to eat meat every day, but remember, you should probably gather some vegetables to have with it. It's not eating out of a jar of coconut oil because, oh, that's a healthy fat and it's paleo and I can eat as much of this as I want. And that's where things start to go wrong. Or all fruit, like no vegetables, they just eat all fruit all day. And at a certain point, then they're like, well, why isn't this working? Well, let me tell you.
Let me tell you that
yeah.
30 bananas a day is not paleo.
Not good, not good. And a jar of almond butter. Yeah, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. But I have to tell you, when I first started paleo, I was still in Bulgaria, so many, many years ago, and I did the paleo diet for athletes is how I started with that book.
That's how I started.
Okay, yep, and that's where I started too, actually, with Lauren.
Yeah, with Lauren Cordain's the blue book. So
Yep.
And so I remember, because I mixed that idea with all of my eating disorder ideas at the time. So it's whatever the cocktail.
I did the same thing. Oh my gosh, we're like the same person.
The paleo ED diet was born.
Yep.
And so what I would do is I ate fruit and nuts all day long. I would buy these giant bags of cashews and I ate fruit and nuts all day long. So because I felt clean. Feeling clean is a particular kind of very interesting psycho-emotional experience. And you could bring it down to religious and other archetypal things, but it made me feel really clean. And so like at night I would eat a little bit of fish and I would eat maybe a little bit of salad. And I was trying to lose weight, but I was already so close to like dangerously low weight for me that I was constantly hungry because I also wasn't eating any carbs. So I made it like other than the fruit. So because the fruit carbs don't do anything for me.
They don't stick with you at all.
I was hungry all the time. Like I can eat one potato or 12 bananas. It's pretty much like how my body works. Like I can eat like actual carbs and get really satisfied with the little, or I need to eat a ton of fruit that doesn't do anything for me. So I did it in this crazy way. And in my mind, I was doing the paleo diet.
Well, you were. Everything you ate was paleo, but
but it was organized in this wacky way.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm training in nutrition. I can do this.
Well, I read the same book, right? It's weird that we all the paleo diet for athletes. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the timing of like when it came out. Like that was a new version and we were ready for it.
Well, I was also lifting weights daily, right?
But I looked at it and I went, oh, I understand all of the things he's saying. But at that time, like buying grass-fed stuff was really hard. Like, and I'm like, where am I going to get organ meats? Like, I can't. Like, I live in like the heart of Orange County, where there's only like big grocery stores. Like, where can I find all this stuff? But so I kind of went into it slowly. I went, oh, I'm going to do as much of this as possible and just continue my like quote unquote healthy eating and my clean eating and the counting cap. So I just, instead of like just following his rules, I went out and had tacos de lengua. I'm like, okay, I can eat some of these organ meats. Liverwurst, I love that, and Braunschweiger, and tacos made out of tongue. Right? So those were like, and I tried some menudo, but I didn't like it. I ate everything but the tripe.
This disgusting.
Yeah, but I did kind of learn, and then over time I modified. Then eventually I came back to it, and I tried like more, like once foods were available, and once I had a better handle on my cooking, and realized that that if I can't find grass-fed everything, I can still do okay with the non-grass-fed, and it's a start. So I don't think I was as disordered.
Yeah, it's amazing how you can take this information. It's all going to get filtered through how we think about food.
Right. Yep.
We all have
how everybody
lenses.
interprets things differently.
Yeah. So like having a diet with principles still requires somebody with knowledge like you to say this is how we're going to do it well. So if there's a quote unquote wrong way to do paleo, what would be like in an ideal world? What would be, and it doesn't have to be realistic, but what would be like, we had Mickey Trescott on our podcast a few months ago
Okay.
talking about
Yep.
nutrient density, and what would be an ideal paleo diet? Would it be more towards nutrient density? What would it be like?
I believe so. And more, so 3/4 of your plate would probably like be vegetables. At least half would be non-starchy vegetables, a quarter would be a starchy vegetable, and a quarter would be protein. And that's a pretty good template to set you up to getting it right. Now, the size of your plate is going to matter, but let's not eat like assholes, and let's pick a healthy size plate and not a platter.
Right.
But yeah, and I believe focusing on the nutrients, colors. I always tell my clients, eat a variety of colors. I'm more on I work with a lot of people that need to lose weight, and I want them to get high quality protein, so I focus on lean proteins, as opposed to, like, I call bacon a fat, sausage is a fat, because otherwise those are the ones they pick all the time, and ultimately those aren't the protein to fat ratio there isn't awesome, and I want to make sure they're getting high quality protein and not overdoing it in terms of caloric density and undoing any weight loss that they are wanting to see. And so I focus on that, and then let them use avocado and have a moderate amount of nuts and those types of things, and add oil to their veggies or butter to their veggies, and as like condiments. The fat is a condiment. It's not a section on the plate.
It's not half of your cup of coffee.
Right, exactly that. Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna put some MCT oils and some ghee and some coconut oil in my coffee. Okay, 500 calories worth of fat later.
Right, and why am I not losing weight? Why am I not losing weight?
Yeah. It is.
I'm intermittent fasting.
Have enough of it.
Right.
You're not. You're not paleoing hard
exactly.
enough. Are you even in ketosis,
Right.
Amy? Are you even in ketosis?
Dude, I know.
Crazy. So since I said the K word, what happened when, paleo was so popular for a while, and now keto has been resurrected and now again. So what about keto?
Yeah, the paleo community used to be like sort of anti-Atkins, and like right, and like look at keto and say, oh, I can't believe like keto's not necessary, you just need to eat paleo. And now it's like everyone's jumping on the keto bandwagon.
We need keto. And I think it's because paleo started to fizzle, so we needed a new scapegoat for people to make money and write blog posts about. But that's a whole nother soapbox. So anyway, keto, it's a diet that has its place therapeutically, but it should not be your life plan. Like, you should not be in ketosis for the rest of your life. It's not healthy. There's not enough studies on super long-term keto like that. And ultimately, people, they're going to lose weight at first when they first go on it. You're going to lose water like no other because there's no carbs. And also, the food variety is so much less. So at a certain point, you just get tired of your selections. Like, if somebody told me I had to be on a keto diet, I'd probably first cry for like 5 years and then go buy some bacon or something. But yeah, it's a depressing diet if you do it right, again, because like on a real keto diet, it's a 3 or 4 to 1 ratio of fat to protein and carbs, which doesn't give you a lot of play. Like, I think a lot of people out there doing keto are doing what they called dirty keto, and that's where the ratios are off. They're using the keto bread and the keto cookies and keto bars and keto shakes and taking exogenous ketones on top to help them get into ketosis. And ultimately, it becomes a very expensive diet. And I've seen people gaining weight on keto, actually. So is that healthy? No. And a lot of people that don't enjoy it. Like, yeah, there's going to be those people that are like, it's changed my life and I feel so good. And it works for some people, but if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. If you hate everything you eat, it's not a good diet for you. And that's kind of with any diet. You need to find one that's going to work for you. And if it's not, and you hate your life, then you're doing it wrong. Food is meant to be enjoyed. It shouldn't be a punishment, and you shouldn't dread your meals.
I was going to say my
wow.
thing is, my thing is,
I'm going to breathe now.
Okay, I'll talk for a second. So like we've met, Galina and I have both met, and I'm sure you have too, people who have like, they love the keto diet, but you can kind of tell that like, because through experience that in like 6 months, they're probably not going to love it anymore, but they don't have it. There's no like exit plan for keto. Like, what are you going to like there's no one saying, okay, so if you start to get tired of keto, here's what you can do to relax a little bit, right? But because they have this belief that the reason that they're losing weight or losing fat is because the ketosis is what did it, not the calorie deficit. So they've like bought into this thing. So we just bought a used car a month and a half ago, and the salesman who needed to lose some weight, he said, right? And he found out I was a health coach. He was asking me questions, and I said, well, if you have any questions, like I'm happy to point you in the right direction. He goes, well, I'm just going to do keto. I go, oh yeah, okay. You like the keto diet? And he goes, oh yeah, I've done it 3 or 4 times.
That exactly. And that's the same with Whole30s. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to do another Whole30.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are you going to do after you Whole30? Whole30 donuts, Whole30 pizzas. Well, yeah. And it's so frustrating. It's short-term fixes for a long-term problem, and it doesn't work.
But what was coming as I was listening to you, I had this light bulb come on, which is if I want to lose weight, so I come in, I'm client A. Client A really wants to lose weight. That's important to them, right? And then I lose that weight on keto. So now for me, keto diet and weight loss, because weight loss is a desired outcome, all of a sudden keto becomes a desired diet because that's the diet that I lost weight on. But not every diet you lose weight on is appropriate.
Is good.
Or healthy. Like, I've lost diet on some stupid ass stuff. Like, I used to do the protein sparing modified fast, Lyle McDonald style. You know how long ago that was?
Okay.
Like, people have forgotten
that was long.
People have forgotten who Lyle is, but that was the first keto book I read. His keto book, his protein book. Those were the books that I was getting my ideas from. So doing a protein sparing modified fast at 600 calories a day because of my size, because I was 118 pounds, so 600 calories a day is what I got, and doing glycogen depletion at the end of the week, and then doing carb loading, which put me in a coma, so I didn't remember my weekends. I would go to work on Monday and not remember.
And it wasn't alcohol.
I didn't remember what I did on Saturday and Sunday because you know what I loaded with was skim milk and cornflakes. That's how I carb loaded after.
So your joy of carb loading was even like some crappy cereal?
And bulk.
And that's what I was gonna say. Cornflakes, really?
Like you wouldn't have picked, like,
not even frosted?
I know.
So you guys,
this is happening in Toast Crunch.
This is happening in Eastern Europe, right? Like cornflakes is like the best thing we have in that category. So at that
remind me never to go there. No, I'm kidding.
Better now.
It's better now. But like,
okay.
Think about like because you're not supposed to have any fat, right? When you're loading, so it's just carbs for like 2 days.
Right.
And you have to eat like 3,000 calories of it. So it's really hard to get that many carbs from, like, I can't eat that many potatoes. You can't eat potato chips because you can't have fat. So like I did the math, and skim milk and cornflakes is what did it. and it was crunchy and it was yummy after eating tuna all week. And I would just be delirious. And people would do that, and I would lose fat. I would get down to like whatever, see all my abs, blah, blah, crap. But I would do that and think that that's healthy. And I think this is what happens to our clients too. It's just because you lose weight doesn't mean it's healthy. But people
Right.
confuse, I think it's so overcoupled because in our culture, we think about being overweight as being unhealthy, then losing weight must immediately gain you health. And we don't talk about people who get sick while they're losing weight because they do.
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
People get sick all the time. I've worked with clients who come to me with immune system issues and they're like, oh, I need to work on my nervous system. And I'm like, tell me about your diet before I throw you into trauma work, because you might be underfueled to even like do the trauma work. And all of a sudden it's like, oh,
Right.
you're eating 25 grams of protein a day. Maybe there's
Ugh.
something else that needs to change before we look at your trauma, right? Oh, but
Right.
I don't want to be heavy. Well, you also don't want to be underfueled for what you're dealing with.
Right. Right. You need to support what you got going on.
Yeah, and I think in our culture, like, and you can go to health at every size and looking at this kind of direction and how much health at every size advocates get attacked for doing what they're doing, which is pretty much saying just being thin doesn't mean you're healthy, and being, plus size doesn't mean you're unhealthy. But we're so
Right.
brainwashed, it's going to take forever to clean ourselves up from this.
Mhm. And I think people think that health at every size means you can eat as much as you want anytime you want, and that's not what it is either. It's not. It's finding a healthy balance that works for you and your body, and not being all about a number on the scale or a certain way your body looks, but how do you feel? And again, that doesn't mean McDonald's every day and ice cream for dinner and donuts for breakfast and eating like complete crap. You need to eat the things that nourish your body, nourish your mind, and make you healthy and feel good, not just whatever the heck you want because I'm body healthy at every size. No, because at a certain point, when they have to cut you out of your house, that's not healthy anymore.
Right. I think that there's such an importance for, educating the medical community that you being over whatever the BMI they expect is not necessarily the cause of your symptoms. Like, that's why health at every size has been so important, and weight stigma education has been so important. But I think once we have those baselines, then it's up to every individual to find that intersection. And I think to the degree to which I think I'm unhealthy right now at my weight because I'm heavier than when I thought I was healthy, that's where it becomes a mind game. And how do we, for each individual, unbrainwash enough to allow them to function at their healthiest at the weight that's appropriate versus the weight that's imagined, right?
Right.
Like, for me, it was a ton of work to allow the weight that I'm now to become accepted as my new normal. Because if you go back and look at what I thought was normal 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it was not a healthy weight for me, but I wouldn't accept any higher weight as healthy. So my internal mental set point had to change.
Right. Yep. And I think, regardless of where people fall on the weight spectrum, whether it's overweight or underweight, it can be an eating disorder on either side. And if your relationship with food is whacked, there's no diet that's going to save you. I'm sorry. It's got to be deeper than diet. And if you don't work through the reason that you are eating cake and cookies all the time, or the reason that you're not eating, you're only eating 25 grams of protein, then that problem is going to persist, and food doesn't fix it regardless.
Yeah. Is it okay to ask another question about weight? Do we have space? Yeah. So
It's okay with me.
Amy, how do you navigate this idea, like when a client, and I understand as professionals we respect our clients' goals, and at the same time, as you said, both on the overweight and the underweight for a body, we can be dealing with disordered eating. How do you navigate that conversation about, bringing people more towards the middle?
So whenever I work with a client, I prefer to, most of the time it'll be like for a meal plan, and I set them up on what a healthy template looks like, and I give them a template, so they get to still freedom to choose the foods that they want, instead of like, you're gonna eat chicken and broccoli and so I want them to be able to choose foods they like and that they have, and that work. And then sort of like how I kind of gauge where they're at on the spectrum is with their feedback of trying to be on that program. So just as an example, a couple clients that I've had recently just cannot get it together. Like they'll be good for a meal a day, maybe, and then it's just whatever they want and however they want it. Well, that meal plan is not going to work for them ultimately. So then I start setting smaller goals. So bringing them, can you drink half your body weight in water? So other healthy things outside of that. Let's get you moving for 20 minutes, 4 or 5 days a week. Let's make it a goal to eat 4 cups of vegetables a day, or 2 cups, wherever they're at, like using that as a goal. Or let's say this is going to be breakfast this week. Like we're going to do 1 meal at a time, and just meeting them where they are. And then, like ultimately I am not a therapist, but I do a lot of therapy. When I talk to people on phones, I feel like I should have like a psychology degree and make double the amount of money that I'm making, but I don't, right? But it's a lot of times for me, the way I work is tough love. Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. You're going to get it straight. Like this is what needs to happen if you want to see results. I can give you the tools, but you have to use the tools. That's your choice, not I can't use them for you. If I could, I would, but I can't. And I want to be here to help you figure out how those tools work in your life the best that I can. But if you've got things, if there's a reason, like if you're a stress eater, if you are an emotional eater, those are things you need to work on. And I've suggested, how about seeing a therapist? I usually try to start with journaling, because once you say therapist, then they just tune you out. You're like, whatever. So like starting with journaling, trying some mindful eating exercises. And I don't know if they ever do it. I mean, I suspect half of them do, and then the other half just give me lip service. But I'm giving them the tools. It's up to them to use them. And I try to meet them where they are. And sometimes, like I've gone to the point where text me a picture of what you're eating, or I will look at the restaurant menu for you, and I will give you options of what you can order, and still they don't. And there's a point where I can tell you these are the best 4 choices on the menu for you. But if you still choose to order the enchiladas with extra cheese, then I got nothing. Like I can't fix that. And so when the scale doesn't go down or your clothes don't fit differently, that's not me. That's on you. And I'm not afraid to say that. And if it continues and continues, I get to the point where it's frustrating for me. I need to fire them as my client, because I can't, I'm not helping, and they're frustrated and I'm frustrated, and I'm not just going to take their money. And when I'm not the kind of help that they need right now, they're not ready.
Yeah. It's almost like, in in my work, there's this idea of I'm ready to teach, but is my student in a place where they're ready to learn? And when we go to people, they often think that they are ready to learn because there's a desire to go somewhere. And I think so often desire is confused with ability. Oh, I really wanna. Well, cool. And let's see what's there. Are you able? And are you ready? Because you might be willing, but until you're both willing and ready and able, it's not gonna happen.
Right.
And the same the same thing happens with me, where people come and they're like, oh my God, I did your webinar, you know, and now I understand why I'm emotionally eating. Great. That just opened the door. So are you gonna walk through it?
Right.
Well, I can't do another thing. Well, great, then keep doing what you're doing. But don't tell me that you expected things to change because you watched a 90-minute webinar. Like, that's the door that opened. And tomorrow morning when you wake up, you have to do sensory integration exercises because those nerves don't know how to work. So I think it's so complicated when people feel so overwhelmed often, right? And we try to help, and they're like, but I'm too overwhelmed to listen to you trying to help me.
Hi,
so
Roland
then,
here with a
you know,
brief
we kind of have to
interruption to
calm
tell
the
you about our
waters a
Eat,
little bit,
Move, Live
where you say, hey, go to a
365
therapist, and they're like, well, that's
Galina and I have been hosting our fun and thriving membership community since 2017, and we'd love to have you as our next member.
It's very
The
tricky.
Eat, Move, Live 365 is filled
delicate
with like-minded people, just like you, ready to share tips, have fun, and give each other the support we all need to live our best lives. We've got monthly recipes, mindfulness practices, and exercises and mobility programs that you can do right at home without any equipment. You are going to love how great simple habits, spirited motivation, and a warm community can make you feel. Head over to eatmovelive365.com right now and check it out. eatmovelive365.com. See you there.
And I've had clients that, okay, so I give them a meal plan and they can't follow that. And then they're like, well, I think I might try keto. Okay. My meal plan is way more liberal than keto. So that's probably not going to be a good idea. You know, like, and there are times when they ask me to put together a keto plan for them. And I'm like, how about we just do what we're doing here first? And then we can try that.
Yeah.
But let's not make things harder than they already are. And I think a lot of times people do that. They make things harder than they have to be because they think it looks easier based on what everybody else is doing. Because the internet would have you believe that, you know, keto cookies and Slim Fast Keto shakes are the way to go.
There's a Slim Fast Keto shake?
Oh, there is.
Oh, I could do keto tomorrow morning.
You could. In chocolate flavor.
Refrigerator with keto.
That's amazing. I'm just continuously amazed at what the industry comes up with.
Remember that I went to.
I bet King Soopers has it on the shelf.
Yeah,
probably.
Well, I haven't been to the we where we lived before. There was a Walmart neighborhood market, which is like the grocery store version of Walmart.
Okay.
And at the checkout area, there was an entire wall of keto stuff. Like
yes. I actually took a picture of that at our Walmart. Yes.
It's crazy.
It was keto fuel.
Yeah. And you just all you have to do is buy a bunch of this stuff and you don't really like what else, you know, make it so easy.
Yep. We have a friend who ended up in hospital after starting keto. And she's one of those friends that asks us for advice all the time, but she doesn't really take it. And we got this text on a Sunday night, I think I was home. Saying, hey, you guys, I need to talk to you. I started keto, ended up in hospital. She's diabetic, right? Uncontrolled diabetic.
Awesome.
Like sugars in the 300s and the 400s, right? And, you know, it didn't end up well for her. And she has like 4 kids. And I was like,
she's on IV. And then we find out that this was like the second time she had been in the hospital with this IV
with severe dehydration.
And then finally she told somebody this time that she was doing keto, and they're like, you're not they said, I think she said, you're not qualified to do keto.
Right.
The doctor
And
said,
that
your
is the case with
prescription- your
half of the people
prescription-
out there doing keto.
Yeah, your prescription is not keto. So then she took that as like, she just went back to normal. Like she didn't go back from keto to like a more reasonable diet. She went back to fast food and
The
donuts and
Standard bullshittery. Yeah.
donuts at
Yep.
church the next morning.
Yeah, and it makes me
Yep.
just feel so, I feel so sad when people can't receive common sense help. And then at the same time, I can't receive common sense help in other areas in my life. So I completely understand.
Right. I know. It's so easy. Why can't you do this? Why can't you figure this out? And then there's me. Yeah.
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 Let's talk a little bit about, so we've talked about some of the extremes and some of the things that frustrate us, right? Let's talk about a little bit about how, like, what are some things that people, can and should do? Like, for instance, every year I look at the US News and World Report's diet rankings, and quite reasonable diets are, I mean, the news like says, oh, the Whole30, like Whole30 is always like the worst diet, right? It gets like close to the bottom of the rank, Whole30, which the diet itself is not like that. I don't find it unhealthy at all, right? Like maybe people, maybe because it's a quick fix type of thing, I get it, but but all of their rankings seem to be based on standard medical advice from like 10 years ago. So they'll look at all these diets through that lens. So, well, it doesn't include, it's super extreme and it doesn't include bread, it doesn't include healthy whole grains. And like obviously it has to be at the bottom. Yet diets like super low fat and DASH diet, which, low salt, I think it's a low salt diet, they get ranked way up at the top.
And the Mediterranean diet's always right there.
Yeah. And like the Mediterranean diet, it's like,
it's a mythical animal too. It's like there's no one Mediterranean.
Well, I remember one year the paleo diet got dinged because their evidence was there's not just one paleo. There was never just one paleo type of person. So how can there be a paleo diet? Well, I've met a lot of Mediterranenean people, and none of them have the same diet. Like so, like there's so like why does the Mediterranean diet get a pass? So.
And I think a lot of that has to do with, okay, so who are the people that are actually putting together the rankings? What are the rankings based on? And like I can see from their standpoints, like why the Mediterranean diet would be healthier. It's most likely they're looking at it from a sustainability standpoint. There's a lot more variety of food there. It's easier to do in social settings. It's balanced with it emphasizes vegetables. There's, it allows for all food spit kind of mentality. When the ones you notice that are on the bottom, and even vegan is fairly low on the list, are the ones that are, we're excluding things. We're making hard and fast food rules for people to follow. And are more short term, like the Whole30, and that are less sustainable from that side of things. So I think what we're going to see more and more of, and I think we're already seeing it, is that the all foods fit. Everything can fit. And I think that's kind of, I know like the rankings, I believe the people that are responsible for putting that together, they base that on the standard American diet, the dietary guidelines, that kind of stuff. And again, this is for everyone. This isn't for people that necessarily need to, like the dietary guidelines isn't for people that need to lose weight. It's for all ages. It's for, so you have to take all that stuff into consideration when you look at this stuff. And ultimately, the rankings are meaningless. They're meaningless because you have to find what works for you. It doesn't matter what somebody else says is number one if you can't follow it. It doesn't matter and if the last one on the list is the one that you feel the best on and that is sustainable to you, then by all means, you run with that shit. you got to find what's right for you. And nobody's opinion can tell you which one is going to be the best for you. And that's where I don't even look at the rankings anymore, because I'm like, you know what? It doesn't even matter, because I've had some really successful vegan clients, and I have had some really successful keto clients that needed that. I've had some very unsuccessful paleo clients. I've had some very unsuccessful keto clients. You know, like they come to me asking for one thing, and we might end up somewhere totally different. Mm-hmm. And like I've helped people with vegetarian and vegan diets, and a lot of it has to do with how they feel when they eat meat. Like they don't feel good. And if you don't feel good, or you're not digesting it, then that's not good for you. Like, it's not good for your body. I would say that's a minority of the population, but there are people out there that can thrive on that, and that's okay. And everybody needs to just like relax. Like, just because somebody else is saying that they're on a vegan diet, we don't have to say you suck. That's stupid. And I know I make fun of vegan. I could never be a vegan. Like, I just couldn't. Like, I like meat, and meat makes me feel good. But there are people that it doesn't make feel good. And that's okay. And keto is a short-term fix or a therapeutic diet, and needs to be done under supervision. And if you're eating keto cookies, I'm going to make fun of you too, probably. But but there are people that need it, and that it works very well for, and that's okay. And just because if you're one of those people and you see somebody else that needs to lose weight, you don't need to tell them that they need to do keto too, because that worked for them. You don't know where they're at, and you don't know what's going to work for them. So that's how I tailor all my work. It's all very individual, and we find what works for each person.
That's amazing. And I feel like while you're finding what works for each person, I imagine that there's certain principles or certain kind of values that you stick to. So if it really just works for me to only eat lettuce 3 times a day, I'm imagining when I work with you that you'd be like, well, you actually need some protein, you need some fat. So
right, exactly.
What would you say are if we could make this very crazy Venn diagram, and we could take all diets and kind of bring the overlap of all of them that actually works, would you feel that overlap places? Is it nutrient density? Or maybe it's not, it can be just one thing, but if there was a few things, I'm imagining nutrient density is one of them, sustainability is one of them. What factors do you think go in there?
Yeah, I definitely do the nutrient density. So you will never get a meal plan from me that does not have a vegetable in some way, shape, or form. Even if you are having digestion issues, we are going to blend it. We are going to do something to get you some vegetables, because you need vegetables. But the backbones like that I always start people on are vegetables, high quality proteins, and then healthy fats, and work on getting some of the other stuff out. It does need to be sustainable, so there's always treats incorporated. And depending on the client and where their goals are, the number of treats that I put in per week, I don't call it cheat, because you can't cheat on food. That's just stupid. So you get treats.
Well, if it's part of your plan, it's not cheating, right?
Right, exactly. It's a treat. And that's what I think we've stopped thinking about things as treats, and it just becomes an everyday food and not a treat. And that's where we start getting into trouble. And a bag of potato chips becomes a norm and not a treat anymore. That's just something that I eat every day, whereas we're going to make it a treat again. So that's not going to be the norm, but ice cream is a treat. So guess what? You have this many treats per week, and you can use them however you want. You can use all of them at one time. You can use them one at a time, but one food is one treat. So use them wisely. And so like setting it up like that, and you can eat out this many times a week, and trying to, just rein them in a little bit slowly, and making things work well for them. So sustainability, nutrient density, and enjoyability. They have to be able to enjoy it. Like if you're not enjoying your food, like if I hate when I have clients that I choked down my broccoli. Well, then don't eat broccoli. Eat something else. Find a way to prepare it that's good. Don't just, boil it till it's dead, or whatever you're doing with it. And we look for recipes, and we try, try different things. Mix your vegetables into things, make stews and soups, and you don't have to just have a pile on the side of your plate. And it doesn't always have to be a salad. Finding ways to enjoy the foods that are healthy, and make them taste good. That's another key. And then just is it making you feel good mentally also, or is it stressing you out? And finding something that's sustainable in that realm also, because if meal prep stresses you out, well, then we got to figure something else out. We have to find some super easy ways to do this. We have to pick a few restaurants or ready to eat type things that you can have. I even had one client that, we looked at some freezer meals, like the frozen microwave ones. And people are probably like, oh, that's terrible. Well, you know what? It worked for her. And it got her away from something a whole lot worse. So you do what works. You do what works for the person and what makes them happy. Mentally, physically, all the way around. It's just, yeah. Yep.
That's amazing. And I think people don't take into consideration those. Say there's 10 questions. Is it nutrient dense? Is it sustainable? Is there variety? Can I have treats? Do I enjoy these foods? Do I enjoy food prep? Whatever the 10 preliminary questions are. And I would imagine 90% of people are like, oh, it's just like they won't have a clue even how to answer those questions.
Right. You're totally right.
And then when the diet doesn't work, what do people do? Because we were all children at one point. We don't think the diet's bad. We think I'm bad. And what do you do to make yourself feel better? You do the behavior that makes you feel better. So you eat crap or whatever. And then you maintain that self-belief that's disempowering that you're bad. You're not bad. You just don't know yet how to choose an appropriate diet. And you don't know yet how to lean into the appropriate professional support so that the help can be helpful. And I think if we can have I have these conversations with my clients right up front, and we need to figure out how this help can be helpful for you. Because if we are not willing to look at the change process as the backbone of your weight loss or you moving through your emotional eating issues, we won't be able to get you success. And we want you to have success because you have 50 years or 60 years or 40 years of suffering behind you. And you just don't want to keep living like this.
Yep. And until they get to that point, there won't be change.
No, because until that point, we're just going, like in studies, how the mouse goes and presses the lever to get the little treat, or get the whatever, the sugar water, the cocaine, whatever they're giving the mice that day. Until that day, we're all just like these little mice going and pressing on the diet lever for the new next fancy treat to come down and get a little cheap dopamine hit. You feel like you're on top of the world for 24 hours, maybe 48, and then you drop down to reality. And on Earth, it's not pretty. And then you choose the next one, and then you go press on the next lever. And this is why there's how many diet books published every year? Like 5,000 or something, some ridiculous number.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And why it's and why the diet industry is like a $300 billion industry. Like, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you, and my question to most people is like, do you want to go keep pushing on the little levers and be the little mouse again and again and again? Or do you want to get into human shape and look at your behaviors and get the right help? You might need 5 people to figure out what's happening. oh, I went to this RD and she had a PhD and it didn't work. Well, that's not enough. You need 4 more people on your team to move through this change process. Oh, well, I can't afford it. Okay, now we have a different conversation to have.
Right, exactly, exactly.
But it's not the diet. It's not the diet. It's never the diet.
No, but the next diet that they've never tried, that they see so many other people doing and saying they're having success with, and there's so many books about it, and there's so many people talking about it, it must work, and they get a dopamine hit just from starting it, right? So it's like whatever it is, whether it's and usually it's something that, I mean, I don't think the complicated diets have the same draw, but these ones that are super, like in some ways paleo was simple, in some ways keto seems simple, the carnivore diet simple, vegan diet simple, because it's like, oh, you just have these super simple rules and you just
nobody's like, I really am considering starting this antihistamine diet. It really works for my friend. Because that's hell on earth. That is hell on earth. I was on an antihistamine diet for 3 months, and I was like suicidal.
I hear people really lose weight on the the low FODMAP diet. Like, what's a low what's a FODMAP again? It's like, I'm going to need a computer program to spit out my menu. Like, no, like, people do that kind of stuff. But people look at these diets that aren't meant specifically for weight loss that can lead to weight loss, and they're like, oh, I have to lose weight. Like, somebody emailed me yesterday. Yeah, I'm used to be in the Air Force and I was in really good shape. I want to get back into that kind of shape again. And I'm thinking of starting the keto diet and going back on the PT program that I used in the Air Force. And I'm like, well, did it require like a lot of like running and like a lot of exercise? And he said, oh yeah. And you're like, well, maybe keto is not the best thing for you. Maybe you should just like, eat something that's more reasonable.
At that point, I'm like, unless you have a time machine, buddy, this is not gonna work.
Yeah, like I don't think the keto diet would have worked for him when he was in the Air Force either. That's why they're not in. That's why the Air Force isn't doing it.
Yep. Yeah. Amen.
So we started with a little bit of this idea of that there's perhaps a cross section of what's good in each diet. And I feel like every macronutrient has been vilified other than protein. Like fat was bad, carbs were bad. I was low carb for 10 years.
Don't you remember when protein is bad for your kidneys?
Oh, protein bad for the kidneys. But it's kind of like eggs are bad for your gallbladder when you don't have a gallbladder. But what about protein? You wrote something recently about, hey, high protein might not be a great idea for everyone. Do you mind putting a little balance in this statement?
Sure. So, protein is great. It's satiating. It helps preserve our muscles, and a little bit more for most people is totally fine. What I see happens a lot is people start displacing other healthy foods and putting in more meat. And so it becomes all protein, no vegetables, and and then nutrient deficiencies start happening on a different end because protein doesn't have all the vitamins, all the minerals. It doesn't have fiber. So constipation is a thing. And so that's where the biggest problem there is. And then choosing what type of protein are they choosing? So are we eating bacon every day? And are we, so like what I truly believe that too much saturated fat is not good. And I know you can probably go to the burn on the stake for that, but I think at some point it's going to bite us in the ass. So mark my words. Anyway, what proteins are you choosing? I've had people that do 2 protein shakes a day and then eat a pound of steak or a pound of hamburger. Okay, you don't need a pound of meat at any one sitting. You just don't. So don't be stupid about it. And that's where it's everybody takes everything to an extreme. And so when they hear, oh, protein is good, well then I'm going to eat all the protein. And that's not what it is. Too much of anything is not a good thing.
Well, it's protein when they hear protein is good, they're like, oh, wow, because look at all the meat and all these wonderful things I can eat. But like if you say vegetables good, no one's like, oh, I'm gonna like
What
triple up my
Right.
vegetables because vegetables
Exactly.
aren't that amazing.
aren't that hyper palatable? But you know what's also interesting is that, if you look at protein and saying, oh yeah, well, meat has all the nutrients, it's not muscle meat that has it, it's organ meats. And I come from a part of the world where lamb head is considered like a normal breakfast food. And it
Okay.
and it's like here you are, this
Once
little,
again, remind me not to go there.
this
No, I'm
little like
kidding.
7-year old, just kind of navigating. I don't really want the eyes, but I'm gonna have the tongue and the brain and everything else for breakfast, and it's delightful. But you grow up
I'm
eating
right there with you.
these spare parts that are full of nutrients, just full.
Mhm.
And you're eating your lamb head with like 4 pieces of bread, and that's
Right.
considered normal. And then you eat a couple of pounds of yogurt throughout the day because that's just how we live there. And then that kind of protein and fat also brings some massive micronutrients. But most Americans, the meat people eat here comes in a little baggie and it's got
Right.
nothing attached to it. So protein is taken out of its context. It's taken out of
Mhm.
the animal in a way that people don't even understand. And so there's all these deficiencies, it's copper stuff happening and manganese and like all these different micronutrient deficiencies that happen in the brain because of it. And people are like, oh, I'm just going to eat it because it's good without really having information. And that's what's really scary when you think about it, because that's how I used to use nutrition information. It's like, oh, it sounds good without any context around it. It's
Right.
crazy. It's crazy to me, but I'm prone to that. Like we can all get myopic like this.
Yep.
That
I
brings us
think.
to
Yeah. I
cheese.
think.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, interrupted you.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Totally agree that we're all, if we don't catch ourselves, we go that route.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about one of our favorite nutrients, macronutrients. Micronutrients.
It's its
It's
own
its own thing.
It's its own food group. It's its own pyramid.
Cheese, right? So obviously it has
Cheese is delicious.
I know. Obviously it has protein in it, but like you with you prescribe bacon into the fat category. We usually as well with the cheese put it into the fat category as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So you recently posted an article that's sort of buzzing around the news lately. So what was it? It was the
Doctors Against Cheese.
Doctors Against Cheese.
How doctors want to put cancer warnings on cheese.
Right.
What the
And
heck?
like it's the doctors that want to do this, Dr. Neil Bernard, I believe that's how you say his name. I'm not entirely sure, but he has a vegan agenda. So everything there is going to be bad, so it comes from an animal and they're looking at it from the antibiotics and all of the hormones in cheese and like their arguments are legit to a point, but not really, because they're also saying, oh, soy is good. And, ultimately, like, is cheese what's going to kill somebody? No, it's not. It's really not. And I think that's like with everything where, oh my gosh, that's terrible. We can't eat that at all. It's like, that's not the one thing that's going to kill you. And we need to stop taking these extreme stances on everything. Now, if cheese is all you eat all day, every day, well, then we got a problem. But that's a different kind of problem. And just too much of anything is a bad thing. And again, just be smart and take everything you hear with a grain of salt. And just because it works for one person does not mean it's going to work for you, and that's okay.
I've been really struck by, I've spent the last 5 years working in the Netherlands for a little bit, and really struck by the Dutch people's diet, who, a lot of them bike a lot. So they're out on their bikes and they're very active. I have barely seen any people overweight in the Netherlands, tourists, but not the locals. And they will eat, so traditional Dutch breakfast is a piece of bread with margarine and chocolate sprinkles. and they have literally aisles of chocolate sprinkles, different kinds of chocolate sprinkles.
Like our cereal aisles here,
like
they
you
have
can,
chocolate sprinkle aisles.
different chocolate sprinkle aisles, colored, different flavors, but they eat a very restricted amount. Like the portions are not big at all. So they eat some of that bread and margarine or butter and chocolate sprinkles. And then they eat cheese. They eat a lot of cheese, especially raw cheeses that are aged. And then there's cheese, lots of potatoes, tons of berries, tons of mushrooms, a lot of greens that look wild, kind of like arugula, like that kind of greens that are more wild with very, very strong greens. And they'll eat a ton of French fries with mayonnaise. And it's very strange because their diet is heavy in carbs, heavy in fat. It has some protein, but not too much. But they don't overeat anything, and they're super active. And it's been so interesting to me to observe. It's kind of like a farmer's diet, right? Kind of like we have in Bulgaria, minus the lamb heads. But they're so incredibly active, and they love life. They love being out, and they're so social. And I feel like in America, there's all this eating, and especially if you look at American movies, even when you don't live here, it's like, really, Americans just sit on the couch and eat tubs of ice cream and popcorn all the time?
Right.
There's just so much isolation here, and so much eating is done alone, and so much eating is done in cars, and so much eating is done on couches, that it's like, how much of this is actually about our social system not working, and our social engagement and rest and digest system not working, as opposed to what foods are actually going in there? I think about that a lot.
Right. I think that it's huge. Lifestyle is big. Like I said, food won't fix it. Like, it's a bigger problem than just food. And until we put all the pieces together, nothing's going to be lasting or work. Like, it just won't. You might see results for a little while, but you're always going to revert back to where you were before. You have to look at all the pieces and be willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable for a while, because it's not going to be easy. What you need to do is not going to be easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So super confusing for everybody, right? for the public, even down to, like, professionals that work in the business, from health coaches to personal trainers. I've had, RDs and doctors. I remember once when my cholesterol was like right on the borderline, they gave me like this pamphlet that like said, don't eat like all these things that were like super wrong. Like, I could go to the USDA website and I could already find that this information was wrong, and they're still handing this stuff out because they don't know. So with all this confusion out there, like, how do you make decisions about what to eat, not to eat, when all this stuff is out there?
Again, I think it comes down to, we all know what we should and shouldn't eat in the grand scheme of things. I mean, really, like, let's be honest. We know vegetables are good. We know lean meats are good. We know what healthy and unhealthy is. I'm pretty sure everybody out there can be like, no, as a small child, that candy isn't an everyday food, or that chips aren't something you should eat in large amounts. If it's super hyper palatable, you probably shouldn't do it. So we don't need a study to tell us that eating cheese all day every day is bad, or eating 3 pounds of cheese a day isn't good for you, or like, don't be stupid. And that's what, like, again, with these studies that come out, the things that the amounts that they're eating, and in the way the studies are set up, they're set up with an agenda. So just being smart about what you know, and actually just ignoring the noise. Eat some vegetables every day. Eat some high quality protein every day. Do what feels good. Don't eat anything like an asshole. I don't care if it's celery or potato chips. Like, either way, some is good, a lot is not. And and just don't be stupid. That's all I can say.
I think some of these could be your tagline.
Don't be stupid. No.
Don't eat like an asshole. It's like, you could just like, we're going down the list. Some is good, a lot is not. It's like,
yeah, totally. But this is it. At the end of the day, there's common sense. And as adults, it's our kind of privilege to use it. But so often we want to outsource it for someone else to tell us. And I think when we're stuck in a fear mindset, we look for information to make ourselves more afraid. So it's like, oh, it's lectins. Oh, it's coffee. Oh, it's alcohol. So we want to point our fingers, because we're in a fear mindset with food, and say, here's another thing I'm going to exclude. Here's another thing I'm going to exclude. Here's another thing I'm going to exclude, whether it's eggs for cholesterol or gluten for your thyroid or whatever it is. I'm going to continue to exclude until at the end I'm so hungry that I no longer have the nutrients that I need to make good decisions. And now you're screwed.
And now it's not my fault anymore.
Right.
I crap because I'm delirious.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I have to tell you, as a vegan and as a low carb human, I was delirious on both diets. And I don't think it was the diet. It was how I was doing it. Right? And I'm willing to publicly say it because it's a learning edge for some people who might not want to have to go in the desert for 40 years to do what I did.
I never felt delirious on it. Like the most extreme diet I ever did was the velocity diet.
Oh, was that dumb?
Yeah.
I only lasted 17
But
days.
like when I did it, I knew, and like it was not like a long-term thing. It was like, oh, can you do 30 days to try to lose weight as fast as possible? And then there was like a whole plan. Okay, at the end, don't just be an idiot. Like he had a whole ramp it back up to like your normal reasonable diet plan. So I knew what I was getting into. And the worst part of it was I was just hungry and thinking that, but I could be just probably less hungry if I would have the exact same macronutrients worth of chicken breast and broccoli. Right. And,
Probably.
and fish
Right.
oil, right.
Probably.
Yeah. So, but I was never delirious. So I was able to make a good decision.
You had enough fat.
I was about to say that I made a good decision, but I did stick it out for the whole 30 days. So maybe I was delirious and I just figuring that out. It wasn't that, and I'm actually glad I did it because it was like a milestone. Can I do this thing for a long period of time? And I didn't get abs though.
Yeah,
you didn't get abs. Well, then it's not even worth it. So whatever.
I had like a 2-pack, but it was still blurry.
30 days to blurry 2-pack. That would be the most saddest book on Amazon.
Right. Yeah. Let's not. That's not going to be a bestseller. So.
Nope.
Challenge accepted.
Amy, tell us about you. How people, if somebody's fallen in love with you on our podcast, how can they find you and work with you? And we're going to also put your website and everything else you have in our show notes.
Yeah, well, my website, you can go to my website and there's a contact me space there. I'm also on social media, so Twitter and Facebook as Amy Kubal and Amy KRD on Twitter. And you can also just shoot me an email and you can put that in the show notes also. So, yeah, and I would love to talk with or help anyone that might be struggling, and yeah.
And you work both with males and females, right?
Males, females. I've children. I've worked with children, adolescents. Yep. So the spectrum.
That's how when people ask me, like, who do you work with? I'm like 5 to 89. Like, that's just my range. Like, and that's my range of experience. I could probably work with older, but 89 is my oldest client.
That's just so many things. This has been a great talk.
So great.
Loved having you on. And I suspect we're going to want to have you on again because I'm already thinking of things we could talk about in the future.
I would love to talk to you.
I will be on anytime, because talking is one of the things I'm really good at.
Thank you for your generous contribution for listeners, and I look forward to another talk with you because off off the record, we talked about diet culture and some of the ways that you and I have navigated our eating issues and disordered eating. And I feel like there's so many women especially who need to hear that there is a way out, even if the way out is blurry.
Right. I agree. And I feel I'm very, very passionate about that topic, just again, like you, because I've spent so much of my life wrapped up in it, and just so people know they're not alone, and even the pros struggle. So and it's okay.
Yeah, and I think the pros would not go towards the direction of our calling if we didn't come from struggle.
I believe I completely agree. Completely agree.
Because I can sit with my client and say, oh yeah, that pisses me off too. And I really feel it. And my client can really feel that I want to scream at the same stuff that they want to scream at. Instead of like, oh, it's okay. No, it's not fair. I get it. I'm in it too. Let me tell you about the crazy idea I had this morning. Right? So it makes
exactly.
So we're in it together, and it's easier to move through together than alone.
Well, let me tell you about my crazy. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, one of my clients on my group call last week didn't know that I used to be obese.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, when I was telling my story, you guys all know that I lost 100 pounds. And she's like, what? When? I go, like 17 years ago. She goes, I had no idea.
You're always
I go, really? Why did you hire me? Like, I thought that was why you hired me. No.
Right.
No.
It's those of us that have struggled or struggle that are best able to help, because we know what's going on in the mind, because our mind has been or is there too, and I think we're better able and equipped to help than the trainer whose abs you can see that has never had a food struggle in their life.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is so invigorating.
Amy Kubal, everybody.
Yes,
the Trend-Free RD. I love it. Trendfreerd.com. Love it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, and we will talk to you next time soon.
Thank you guys for listening.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Galina and I had so much fun with Amy that we have decided to team up, the three of us, on a big, exciting project about health, weight loss, and finding your new normal. Come join us at eatmovelive52.com/Amy. Get all the information, sign up to hear the news first. See you soon.